Marcus Chen hadn't slept through the night in 3 years. Neither had his sons. 52 years old, self-made billionaire, founder of TechCore Industries, the man who'd revolutionized cloud computing and walked away with $4 billion. He had everything money could buy. Everything except silence. The screaming started at 9:47 p.m. Marcus checked his watch from his home office, jaw tight. Right on schedule. In exactly 13 minutes, it would escalate. The twins would join in. By 10:15, all 3 boys would be in full meltdown mode, and the cycle would continue until sometime around 4 o'clock a.m., when exhaustion finally claimed them for 2, maybe 3 hours. Then they'd wake and start again. Down the hall, he heard footsteps running. The night nurse, what was her name? Jennifer, Jessica, her voice rising in panic. "Please, sweetie, please just lie down. You need to sleep. You're so tired." Marcus closed his eyes. She was begging. They always started begging around week 2. By week 3, they'd quit. This one had made it 16 days, better than most. His phone buzzed. The night nurse. Her text was brief, professional, defeated. "Mr. Chen, I'm very sorry, but I can't continue. My resignation is effective immediately. I'll stay until you find a replacement, but I need to leave by Friday. This is beyond my training." 15. That made 15 caregivers in 3 years. 15 trained professionals, pediatric nurses, child psychologists, sleep specialists flown in from Switzerland, all defeated by 3 small boys who couldn't sleep. Marcus typed back, "Understood. Thank you for your honesty." He opened his laptop and pulled up the security footage. 3 monitors, 3 bedrooms, 3 angles of the same nightmare. Mason, age 3, eldest by 4 minutes, stood in his crib screaming. Not crying, screaming. His small face was red, eyes squeezed shut, hands gripping the rails until his knuckles turned white. He'd been standing for 42 minutes. Soon his legs would give out and he'd collapse, only to wake himself falling and start again. Owen and Ryan, the twins, were in their shared room. Owen rocked violently in his bed, back and forth, that same rhythmic motion he'd done since infancy. Ryan lay rigid, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling with an intensity that made Marcus's chest hurt. None of them were sleeping. None of them ever really slept. Marcus's wife, Lily, had died bringing them into the world. Emergency C-section at 32 weeks, complications they couldn't control, hemorrhaging they couldn't stop. 3 premature babies survived. Their mother didn't. The boys came home from the NICU after 8 weeks. They were tiny, fragile, but alive. The doctors said they were lucky, said the boys had beaten the odds. What the doctors didn't say was that his sons would never rest. That sleep, the most basic human need, would elude them night after night after night. That they'd scream and rock and stare at ceilings while Marcus poured money into specialists who had no answers. Sleep disorder, infant insomnia, regulatory issues, sensory processing dysfunction. The labels piled up like medical bills. None of them helped. Marcus had tried everything money could solve. Custom sleep systems that cost $30,000 each. White noise machines calibrated to exact frequencies. Sleep consultants who stayed in the house for weeks, implementing rigid schedules. Medications the pediatricians prescribed reluctantly. Melatonin, then stronger things when that failed. Nothing worked. His sons didn't sleep, and when children don't sleep, they don't grow properly, don't develop properly, don't exist properly. They lived in a fog of exhaustion, 3 small boys trapped in bodies that refused to rest. Marcus stood and walked to the window. His Connecticut estate stretched out below, 12 acres, Olympic pool, tennis courts nobody used. The gardens Lily had designed sat perfectly maintained by staff. Everything beautiful, everything empty. He'd built this place for her. They'd planned it together during her pregnancy, dreaming about the life they'd have with their 3 sons. She'd wanted them to have space to run, to play, to grow up with nature around them. Now it was just an expensive tomb where nobody slept. The screaming intensified. Marcus pressed his palms against the cold glass. He knew what came next. He'd watched this cycle 15 times before. The current nurse would last until Friday, 3 more days of holding on through professional courtesy. Then she'd leave, and he'd start again. Call the agency, explain the situation, watch them try to hide their hesitation when he told them about the sleep issues. "These are very challenging circumstances, Mr. Chen. We'll need to charge a premium rate for this placement. I should warn you, we're running low on candidates willing to take this position." Running low, like his sons were a supply problem to be managed. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The betrayal history. Marcus walked down the hallway toward the boys' wing. The house was too big. 23 rooms for a man and 3 children who never stopped moving. Staff quarters, guest suites nobody visited. Lily's art studio, untouched since the day she died. Doctor locked, key hidden somewhere Marcus couldn't remember. He passed the wall where family photos used to hang. He'd taken them down 18 months ago. Couldn't walk past Lily's face 20 times a day. Couldn't see the hope in her eyes from the maternity chute, her hands on her belly, believing in a future that never came. The nurse's station was at the end of the hall. Jessica, he'd finally remembered her name, sat there with her head in her hands. She looked up when she heard him approaching. "Mr. Chen." Her voice was hoarse from hours of trying to soothe children who couldn't be soothed. "I'm so sorry. I really tried." "I know you did. I've worked pediatric ICU for 8 years. I've managed ventilators, feeding tubes, post-surgical trauma care, but this," she gestured helplessly toward the bedrooms. "I don't know how to help them. Nobody does." Marcus nodded slowly. This was the part where they explained why they were leaving, as if he didn't already know, as if he hadn't heard every variation of this speech 14 times before. "The first nurse lasted 6 days, Marcus said quietly. "Diane, she specialized in premature infants, said she'd never seen anything like this and couldn't ethically continue when she had no answers." Jessica listened, her eyes filling. "Number 3 was Dr. Patterson, developmental pediatrician, stayed 11 days, left when Mason threw up on her for the 4th time from sheer exhaustion. She said," Marcus's voice went flat, emotionless. "She said some children are just incompatible with standard care models." "Mr. Chen." "Number 7, Rebecca, lasted 3 weeks. That was the record until you. She implemented a behavioral sleep training program. Let them cry it out. Scientific method. The boys screamed for 6 hours straight the first night, 7 hours the second night. On day 19, I found her in the kitchen at 3 a.m., crying into her coffee. She left that morning." Jessica stood up. "They're not incompatible. They're not broken. There's something—" She paused, searching for words. "There's something we're all missing. I've had 15 professionals tell me that. None of them found it. I know, I'm sorry." Caregiver number 9 had stolen prescription anxiety medication from the medical supply cabinet. Marcus discovered it during a routine inventory check. She'd been taking it to cope with the stress. He fired her on the spot. Number 11 had been secretly recording the boys' nighttime episodes and posting them to a private medical forum, asking for advice. HIPAA violation. She was gone within hours. Number 13 had started yelling at the children. Marcus watched it through the security cameras, saw her patience snap, saw her shouting at Mason to just shut up and sleep. He'd walked into the room, handed her a check for the full month, and told her to leave immediately. Trust had become impossible. Every new face was another potential failure, another risk, another person who'd look at his sons and eventually decide they were too much. So Marcus installed more cameras, motion sensors in every room, audio monitoring, a complete security system that let him watch from anywhere. He told himself it was about protecting his boys. But really, it was about protecting himself from the next betrayal. "I'll stay through Friday," Jessica said, "and I'll be honest in my notes to the agency. These boys need something beyond standard care. They need—" She stopped. "I don't know what they need, but someone, somewhere, must—" "No." Marcus doubted it, but he nodded his thanks. The empty search at 2:37 a.m., Marcus sat in his office reviewing applications. The agency had sent over 3 candidates. 3, when usually they'd send a dozen. He was burning through their available staff faster than they could recruit. Candidate 1, Maria Santos, 15 years experience in pediatric care, specialized in behavioral disorders. Her resume was impressive, but there was a note at the bottom from the placement coordinator. "Please be advised that Ms. Santos has requested detailed information about the sleep schedule and has expressed concerns about long-term sustainability of the position." Translation: she'd heard about his sons and was already planning her exit. Candidate 2, Jonathan Wright, male nurse with trauma care experience. Marcus had specifically requested male caregivers after number 8 suggested the boys might respond better to a father figure. Jonathan had lasted 9 days before admitting he was completely out of his depth. Candidate 3, the file was thinner than the others. Clara Bishop, 61 years old, former ICU nurse, recently retired, returning to private care after her husband's death. The note said she'd specifically asked about the Chen family after hearing about the position through her church. Marcus almost closed the file immediately. The last thing he needed was someone thinking prayer would solve medical problems, but something made him keep reading. Under special skills, she'd written, 38 years in nursing. I don't quit. I don't judge. I don't give up on children, ever. The application had a handwritten note attached. Unusual. Most came through the agency's digital system. "Mr. Chen, my name is Clara Bishop. I heard about your family through a friend at First Methodist. She mentioned your sons have difficulty sleeping. I lost my husband 6 months ago to Alzheimer's. He didn't sleep either, not for the last 3 years. I understand what sleep deprivation does to a family. I understand what it means to love someone through the impossible nights. If you're willing to interview me, I'd be honored to meet your boys. Respectfully, Clara." Marcus read it twice. Alzheimer's caregiving wasn't pediatric sleep disorders, but something about the note's directness cut through his exhaustion. No false promises, no clinical detachment, just, "I understand impossible nights." He checked the time, nearly 3 o'clock a.m. From down the hall, he could hear Mason's screaming had finally quieted. The boys would crash soon, sleep for 2 hours, wake up exhausted, and begin another day. Marcus sent an email to the agency coordinator. "Interview Clara Bishop, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock a.m. Then he closed his laptop and walked to the boys' wing. He did this most nights, stood outside their rooms, listening to them finally surrender to sleep. 3 small bodies that couldn't find rest, couldn't find peace. Mason lay sprawled in his crib, face pressed against the mattress, one small hand still gripping the rail. He'd fallen asleep standing and collapsed. Marcus wanted to go in, reposition him, cover him with his blanket, but any movement would wake him and the cycle would start again. Owen and Ryan were finally still. Owen had rocked himself into unconsciousness. Ryan stared at the ceiling with half-closed eyes, not quite asleep, not quite awake, trapped in that terrible in-between. Marcus pressed his forehead against the doorframe. Lily would know what to do. Lily would have figured this out. She'd been the intuitive one, the one who understood what people needed before they asked. She'd made their lives work. His analytical mind and her emotional intelligence balanced, complete. Without her, he was just a man throwing money at problems, installing cameras instead of solutions, counting the days until the next person quit. He went back to his office and pulled up the security footage. He did this every night, watched the recordings, looking for something he'd missed, some pattern, some clue, some answer, hidden in thousands of hours of 3 children not sleeping. What he saw was always the same. pain, exhaustion. 3 small boys trapped in bodies that wouldn't rest. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. Tomorrow he'd interview Clara Bishop. In 3 days Jessica would leave, and the cycle would continue until it didn't, until he ran out of caregivers willing to try, until his sons aged out of childhood, having never known what a full night's sleep felt like. He closed the laptop again, walked to his empty bedroom, lay down on sheets that were too cold, too crisp, too perfect, and just like his sons, Marcus Chen stared at the ceiling in the dark, not sleeping, not resting, just existing through another impossible night. Clara Bishop arrived at 8:55 a.m. in a 15-year-old Honda Civic that had seen better days. Marcus watched from his office window as she parked beside the fountain, took a moment to smooth her simple gray cardigan, then walked toward the front entrance with steady steps. No hesitation, no pause to gawk at the mansion, just purpose. Mr. Whitmore, the house manager, showed her to the library. Marcus took his time walking there, letting her wait, observing through the hallway camera. She didn't fidget, didn't pull out her phone, just sat with her hands folded in her lap, looking at the rows of books Lily had collected. When Marcus entered, Clara stood immediately. She was shorter than he expected, maybe 5'4", with silver hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her handshake was firm. "Mr. Chen, thank you for seeing me." "Ms. Bishop," Marcus gestured to the chair, "your application was unconventional. I'm an unconventional candidate." No apology in her voice, just fact. Marcus sat across from her, the mahogany desk between them. He'd conducted this interview 15 times. He knew the script. The agency explained the situation. 3 boys, age 3, severe sleep disturbance, 15 previous caregivers. You're looking for someone who won't quit. Can you promise that? Clara met his eyes directly. "No, sir, I can't promise I'll succeed, but I can promise I won't leave because it's hard. Hard is all I've known for 3 years. Marcus's jaw tightened. The note had mentioned her husband, Alzheimer's. He didn't want to ask, didn't want this to become emotional, but something made him. Your husband, how long did you care for him? 3 years after diagnosis. 2 of those years, he didn't sleep more than an hour at a time. Sundowner's syndrome, the confusion gets worse at night. He'd wake up not knowing where he was, not knowing who I was, terrified. Her voice stayed steady. I learned to function on 2 hours of sleep, learned to stay patient when my body was screaming for rest, learned that loving someone through impossible nights is a choice you make every single day. This isn't Alzheimer's. No, sir, but exhaustion is exhaustion, and children who don't sleep are suffering just like adults who can't. The cause might be different. The pain is the same. Marcus leaned back. Every other candidate had presented credentials, certifications, methodologies. Clara was presenting herself, raw, unpolished, real. "Why do you want this job?" Clara was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "When my husband died, I lost my purpose. 38 years, I was a nurse. Then 8 years, I was his caregiver. Then suddenly, I was nothing, just a widow in an empty house." She looked down at her hands. "I don't need the money, Mr. Chen. My husband's life insurance, our savings. I'm comfortable. But comfortable isn't the same as needed, and I spent too many years being needed to suddenly not be. So my sons are your therapy?" "No, sir." Clara's eyes came up, sharp now. "Your sons are children in pain, and I know what pain looks like at 3:00 a.m. I know what desperation sounds like. I know that when the sun comes up and nothing's changed, you need someone who isn't going to walk away." She paused. "I'm not here to fix myself. I'm here because maybe all those sleepless nights with my husband were preparing me for this." Marcus studied her face. No tears, no manipulation, just honesty that made his chest tight. "The boys are difficult, aggressive sometimes when they're exhausted. I've been hit, bitten, scratched, and had things thrown at me by a 200-pound man who didn't know his own strength. I can handle 3-year-olds. They scream for hours. I've heard worse. They don't respond to standard sleep training. Then maybe standard isn't what they need. That stopped Marcus. Every caregiver before had promised to implement protocols, follow evidence-based practices, stick to the plan. Clara was suggesting there might not be a plan. What would you do differently? Clara shook her head slowly. I don't know yet, Mr. Chen. I'd need to spend time with them, watch them, learn their patterns. Every person is different. Every child is different. What works for one might not work for another. She leaned forward slightly. But I can tell you what I won't do. I won't give up on them. I won't decide they're too difficult. And I won't leave you counting down the days until I quit. Marcus's throat felt tight. He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the gardens. Behind him, Clara waited. You can start today, he said quietly. Trial period, 1 week, same as the others. Thank you, Mr. Chen. One more thing. Marcus turned to face her. I have cameras everywhere I watch. I know, the agency told me. And you're okay with that? Clara stood, smoothed her cardigan. Mr. Chen, when you've spent years caring for someone who could hurt themselves at any moment, you learn that being watched is protection, not invasion. Put cameras wherever you need them. I've got nothing to hide. Clara met the boys at 6 p.m. Marcus watched through the nursery camera as Jessica introduced them. This is Mason, Owen, and Ryan. Boys, this is Ms. Clara. She's going to be taking care of you. Mason stared at Clara with red-rimmed eyes. He hadn't napped all day. None of them had. Owen rocked in his chair, a rhythmic motion that never stopped. Ryan sat perfectly still, watching everything, seeing too much for a 3-year-old. Clara knelt down slowly, bringing herself to their level. She didn't reach out, didn't smile that bright fake smile adults use with children. Just knelt there, present. Hello, she said softly. You must be very tired. Mason's face crumpled. For a second, Marcus thought he'd start crying, but the boy just nodded, one small movement. Me too, Clara said. Being tired is hard, isn't it? Another nod. Owen kept rocking, Ryan's eyes fixed on Clara's face. I'm going to be here at nighttime, Clara continued, and we're going to figure this out together. Not tonight, probably. Maybe not tomorrow night. But we will. Jessica looked skeptical. Marcus could see it in her face. Promises like that had been made before. They never held. The evening routine began. Bath time at 6:30. The boys splashed mechanically. No joy in it, just going through motions. Clara helped dry them, gentle but efficient. Pajamas, toothbrushing. The pre-sleep rituals designed by a specialist who'd lasted 8 days. At 7 p.m., Clara began putting them down. Mason in his crib, Owen and Ryan in their beds. Marcus watched from his office as Jessica left for the night. Clara was alone now with 3 children who were about to start screaming. She sat in the rocking chair between their rooms, just sat, waiting. At 7:14, Mason stood up in his crib and started screaming. Clara didn't rush to him, didn't try to force him back down. She just started humming, low, gentle, some old hymn Marcus didn't recognize. Owen began rocking violently. Ryan's eyes went wide, that terrible wakeful stare. Clara kept humming. Her hands moved in her lap, some gentle motion, almost like she was knitting invisible thread. Mason screamed louder, and Clara did something Marcus had never seen before. She started speaking, not to make them stop, not to shush them, just speaking into the noise. I know, she said softly. I know you're scared. I know your body won't let you rest. I know it hurts. Mason's scream broke, hitched. You're not alone tonight, Clara continued, still humming between words. I'm right here. I'm staying right here. Marcus leaned closer to the monitor. What was she doing? Owen's rocking slowed slightly. Ryan blinked. Clara stood and walked to Mason's crib, but she didn't pick him up, didn't force him down. She just placed her hand on the rail, close to where his small hand gripped it. You can scream if you need to, she said. I'm not going anywhere. And then she started singing, really singing, not just humming. Her voice was clear and strong, some old song about peace and rest and mercy. Marcus had watched 15 caregivers try everything: silence, white noise, music recordings, behavioral interventions. Nobody had ever just sung, just offered their own voice, their own presence. Mason's screaming dissolved into crying, real crying, not rage or exhaustion, just grief. Clara's hand stayed on the rail. "That's right, baby, let it out." At 9:47 p.m., Marcus watched Clara do something that made him sit up straight. She'd noticed Owen's rocking, really noticed it. Instead of trying to stop it, she knelt beside his bed and started moving with him. Forward, back, matching his rhythm exactly. Owen's eyes went to her face, surprised. Clara kept rocking, kept matching him. Then slowly, gradually, she started slowing down, just a fraction. Owen's body followed, unconsciously adjusting to her pace. She was using his own motion to calm him, working with it instead of against it. Marcus's heart pounded. He pulled up past footage, weeks of recordings. Every caregiver had tried to stop Owen from rocking, hold him still, redirect him, break the pattern. Clara was joining it. She rocked with Owen for 20 minutes, slowly, gradually decreasing the intensity until both of them were barely moving. Owen's eyes started to droop. Then Clara moved to Ryan's bed, the boy who never closed his eyes, who stared at ceilings like he was watching for danger. She lay down on the floor beside his bed, just lay there on the carpet, looking up at the same ceiling he was watching. "What do you see up there?" she asked quietly. Ryan didn't answer. 3-year-olds with severe sleep disorders often had speech delays. Ryan hadn't said a word in months. "I used to lie awake at night too," Clara said, looking at the ceiling, wondering why sleep wouldn't come. She was quiet for a moment. "The ceiling doesn't change, but maybe that's okay. Maybe it's nice to have something steady to look at when everything else feels scary." Ryan's rigid body relaxed, just slightly, just enough. Clara started humming again. That same hymn, and slowly, impossibly, Ryan's eyes began to close. Marcus stood up from his desk, walked closer to the monitor. This wasn't possible. Ryan never closed his eyes before midnight. Never. But there he was, eyelids drooping, fighting it but losing, finally giving in to something that looked like peace. At 10:23 p.m., Owen fell asleep. At 10:31 p.m., Ryan's eyes closed completely. At 10:45 p.m., Mason stopped crying and collapsed in his crib. Marcus stared at the screens, all 3 boys, sleeping. Before 11 o'clock p.m. on the first night, Clara stood up slowly from the floor beside Ryan's bed. She checked each boy, adjusted blankets, then walked out into the hallway. She didn't look triumphant, didn't celebrate, just walked to the nurse's station and sat down with a tired sigh. Marcus watched her pull out a small notebook and start writing. He zoomed the camera in, trying to see what she was documenting. He could only make out a few words. Mason needs permission to grieve. Owen seeking regulation through movement. Ryan, hypervigilance? That last word had a question mark, like she was figuring something out. Marcus checked the time, 11:07 p.m. The boys had been asleep for over 20 minutes. Usually they'd wake themselves within 10, but the monitors showed 3 steady breathing patterns, 3 still bodies, 3 children doing something they hadn't done in 3 years, resting. Marcus sat back in his chair, his hands shaking. One night. Clara had been there one night. He told himself not to hope, told himself this was a fluke, an accident, exhaustion finally catching up to them, told himself tomorrow would be back to normal, but he couldn't stop watching her through the camera. This woman sitting at the nurse's station, writing notes, learning his sons in ways 15 professionals hadn't. She wasn't fixing them, she was trying to understand them. And maybe, Marcus thought, his chest tight with something dangerous, maybe that was the difference. 5 nights. 5 nights of watching Clara Bishop do the impossible. Marcus hadn't left his office except for mandatory business calls. He'd canceled 2 board meetings, postponed a merger negotiation worth $300 million. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered except the screens in front of him showing 3 boys sleeping through the night. Not perfectly, not completely, but sleeping. Mason went down by 10:30 each night. Owen by 11 o'clock. Ryan still fought it, still stared at ceilings, but by midnight even he surrendered. And they slept. Real sleep, deep sleep, until 6 o'clock a.m. 6 hours. His sons were getting 6 consecutive hours of sleep. Marcus had watched every second of footage, rewinding, analyzing, trying to understand what Clara was doing differently. She sang the same hymns. She rocked with Owen instead of stopping him. She lay beside Ryan's bed and talked about ceilings and fears and staying present. But it was more than that, something he couldn't name. On the 6th morning, Marcus found Clara in the kitchen making oatmeal. The boys sat at the table, actually sat, not crying, not fighting, eating slowly. "Mr. Chen," Clara looked up, surprised. "I didn't know you'd be up this early." Marcus stared at his sons. Mason's eyes were clearer. Owen had stopped the constant rocking, still moved rhythmically, but calmer now. Ryan met his father's gaze and didn't immediately look away. "They're different," Marcus said. "They're rested." Clara set down her spoon. Sleep changes everything. Behavior, cognition, emotional regulation. They've been running on empty for so long, their little nervous systems were just... She paused, searching for words, screaming for relief. "But why you? Why now? 15 people tried everything." Clara wiped Mason's face gently. "Can I be honest with you, Mr. Chen? Please. I don't think anyone was watching them, really watching. They were watching the problem, the sleep disorder, the behavior, the diagnosis, but nobody was watching the children." Marcus felt that land hard. "That first night," Clara continued, "I noticed something. Mason wasn't just screaming. He was gripping that crib rail like he was holding on for dear life, like he was afraid of falling. He's been doing that for 3 years. I know, but has anyone asked why?" Clara's voice was gentle but firm. "Owen rocks because it's the only way his body knows how to self-regulate. Ryan stares at the ceiling because he's scanning for danger. These aren't random behaviors, Mr. Chen. They're adaptations. Survival strategies." "Survival from what?" Clara looked at the boys, then back at Marcus. Her eyes were serious now. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me without getting defensive." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Go ahead." "I think your sons have been traumatized since birth. I think spending 8 weeks in the NICU, being separated from their mother immediately, losing her before they ever really knew her, I think their nervous systems never learned how to feel safe." The words hit like a physical blow. The doctors were looking at sleep disorders, behavioral issues, medical diagnoses. Clara's voice softened. Nobody was looking at grief. Infant trauma, the way fear lives in the body before children have words for it. Marcus couldn't breathe. They were babies. Babies feel everything, Mr. Chen. They just can't tell us. And when babies are terrified, when they're separated from the one person who's supposed to make them feel safe, their bodies remember, even when their minds don't. Mason reached for Clara's hand. She took it gently. "These boys have been trying to tell us they don't feel safe. The screaming, the rocking, the staring, it's all been communication. We just weren't listening." Marcus sat down heavily. 3 years. 3 years of specialists and protocols and medications, and nobody had considered that his sons were simply afraid. "What do we do?" Clara smiled, softly. "We teach them safety, one night at a time, one moment at a time. We show them that rest doesn't mean danger, that closing their eyes doesn't mean something bad will happen, that someone will be there either when they wake up." "Is that what you've been doing?" "Yes, sir, that's all I've been doing." On the 8th night, Marcus made a decision that terrified him. He walked into the boys' wing at bedtime instead of watching from his office. Clara looked up, surprised. "Mr. Chen!" "I want to help." His voice shook. "I want to learn." The boys stared at their father. They barely knew him. He'd been a ghost in their lives, providing everything except presence. Clara's face softened. "Come sit." Marcus sat in the rocking chair. Clara brought Mason to him. The boy went rigid. "He doesn't know you," Clara said gently. "Not really. You've been watching through cameras instead of being here." The truth of it cracked something in Marcus's chest. "I didn't know how." "I know. Grief does that. Makes us hide from the things we love because losing them once already destroyed us." Clara knelt beside the chair. "But Mr. Chen, they need you. Not your money, not your house. You." Marcus looked down at Mason's small face. His son, Lily's son. This tiny person who'd never known his mother, who'd spent 3 years terrified, whose father had loved him from a distance because getting close meant risking more loss. "I don't know what to do," Marcus whispered. "Hold him, just hold him, that's all." Marcus wrapped his arms around Mason. The boy stayed rigid for a long moment. Then slowly, his small body began to soften. His head found Marcus's shoulder. Something broke open inside Marcus. All the grief he'd buried, all the fear he'd hidden behind security cameras and terminated contracts and professional distance. It came flooding out in silent tears that fell onto his son's hair. "I'm sorry," Marcus breathed. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I'm so sorry I didn't know how to be your father." Mason's small hand gripped Marcus's shirt. Clara moved to Owen, started their rocking routine, but she spoke while she moved. "Your boys needed to feel safe before they could sleep, and they needed to know their father wasn't going to disappear like their mother did. I was here. I was always here. You were in the house, but you weren't present. There's a difference." Marcus held Mason tighter. Clara was right. He'd been so afraid of losing more that he'd never really let himself have what remained. "Teach me," Marcus said. "Please, teach me how to do this." Clara smiled. "You're already doing it. You're here. That's the first step." 3 months later, the mansion felt different. Not because of the furniture or the decor, because of the sounds. Laughter, real laughter. Marcus sat on the floor of the playroom with his 3 sons. Mason stacked blocks while Owen hummed and rocked gently, still seeking that regulation, but peaceful now. Ryan played with toy cars, still quiet, but present. Clara watched from the doorway, smiling. "You don't need me anymore," she said. Marcus looked up, panic flashing. "No, please, we need—" "You need family, Mr. Chen, and I can't be that." Clara walked into the room, sat down beside them. "But I can be something else, if you'll let me." "What do you mean?" "I mean I'd like to stay, not as an employee, as—" She paused, searching for the right word. "As someone who loves these boys, who wants to watch them grow up, who wants to be here for the bedtimes and the nightmares and the mornings when they wake up rested." Marcus's throat tightened. "Like family, if you'll have me." Mason climbed into Clara's lap. Owen leaned against her side. Ryan brought her a toy car to admire. "We already have you," Marcus said quietly. "We just didn't know how to ask you to stay." Clara gathered the boys close. "Then I'm staying, for as long as you need me." "Forever," Mason said, his first full sentence in months. Everyone stopped, stared. Mason looked up at Clara with clear, rested eyes. "Stay forever?" Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Forever, baby. I promise." That night, Marcus did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He tucked his sons into bed himself. Clara stood in the doorway, supervising but not interfering. This was his moment. Marcus knelt beside Mason's crib, though they'd be transitioning to toddler beds soon, another milestone. "I love you," he whispered. "I'm sorry it took me so long to show you." Mason smiled sleepily. "Love you, Daddy." He moved to Owen, rocked gently with him until the rhythm slowed. "You're safe. I'm here. I'm always going to be here." Owen's eyes closed peacefully. Ryan was last. Marcus lay down on the floor beside his bed, looked up at the ceiling with him. What do you see up there, buddy? Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice so soft, Marcus almost missed it. Nothing scary anymore. Marcus's chest cracked open. Good, that's good. He reached up, took his son's small hand. Nothing scary, just us, just family. Ryan's eyes closed. Marcus stayed on the floor until all three boys were deeply asleep. Then he stood slowly, walked to where Clara waited in the doorway. Thank you, he said, for seeing what I couldn't, for loving them when I was too afraid to. You were always loving them, Mr. Chen. You just needed to learn how to be present in that love. They walked to the nurse's station, though it wasn't really that anymore. Just a comfortable chair where Clara sat some evenings, reading her worn Bible, being available if the boys needed her. I never asked, Marcus said. Why did you really come? The real reason. Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled out a small photo from her Bible. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, smiling at the camera. My daughter, Clara said softly, died when she was 8. Cancer, before my nursing career, before my husband, before everything. Marcus's breath stopped. I learned about grief and healing when I lost her. Learned that broken hearts can still love. That loss doesn't disqualify you from joy. It just teaches you to recognize how precious it is. Clara looked toward the boys' rooms. When I heard about your sons, I knew God kept me alive through my daughter's death, through my husband's illness, through all of it. Maybe for this. Maybe to help 3 little boys learn that sleep is safe and tomorrow is worth waking up for. Marcus understood then. They were all survivors, all learning to live after loss. They're sleeping through the night now, Marcus said, really sleeping. Because they finally feel safe, because their father is present, because they know they're loved. Marcus looked at the monitors. 3 peaceful faces, 3 steady breathing patterns, 3 children who'd been trapped in fear and found their way to rest. What was wrong with them? Marcus asked. What was the diagnosis nobody found? Clara smiled gently. Grief, Mr. Chen, just grief. The oldest condition in the world, and the only cure is love. 1 year later, the mansion hosted its first birthday party since Lily died. 4 years old. Mason, Owen, and Ryan ran through the gardens, chasing each other, laughing. They slept through the night every night now. Sometimes one would wake from a bad dream, but Clara was there, Marcus was there, and they'd learned that waking up didn't mean being alone. Marcus stood on the terrace, watching his sons play. Clara came to stand beside him. Thank you, he said, for everything. Thank you for letting me love them. You saved them. Clara shook her head. No, Mr. Chen, you all saved each other. I just helped you find the way. Marcus looked at this woman who'd walked into their broken lives and refused to leave, who'd seen 3 traumatized children and decided love was louder than fear. Stay forever, he asked, echoing Mason's words from months ago. Clara smiled. Forever, Mr. Chen, I promise. And in that garden where Lily had once dreamed of children playing, her sons finally ran free, rested, healed, home.